faithfully conveying value and interpreting great books from around the world.
Hello, this is Sally's Book Club.
Today we're interpreting this classic science fiction novel, Jules Verne's Around the World in 80 Days. In the 16th century, Portuguese navigator Magellan's fleet took over 3 years to complete the first circumnavigation of the globe. Despite countless difficulties and dangers, Magellan himself died in tribal conflicts in the Philippines.
But more and more people longed to join the ranks of global travelers.
This included the author of this book, Jules Verne. Verne was a renowned 19th century French science fiction writer. Born in 1828 in the French port city of Nantes, he dreamed of sailing around the world since childhood. At age 11, he secretly boarded a ship bound for India as a cabin boy, only to be caught by his father and given a good spanking. Tearfully, he promised his father he'd only travel in his imagination while lying in bed, traveling through fantasies. Later, obeying his father's wishes, he studied law in Paris, a subject he had no interest in. At 18, while attending a theater play, the playful Verne slid down a banister and accidentally crashed into a portly gentleman.
Oh!
This gentleman was no ordinary man. He was Alexander Dumas, the literary giant of France. This collision sparked an unlikely friendship across generations. Encouraged by Dumas, Verne began recording his imaginary journeys in writing. Verne wrote nearly 100 science fiction works in his lifetime, over 60 being full-length novels, earning him the title Father of Science Fiction. His novel themes spanned widely, covering multiple countries while frequently venturing into skies, underground worlds, and ocean depths. This led many to suspect after his fame that he couldn't possibly work alone but must have had a large creative team. When questioned by a reporter, Verne laughed heartily and opened several large metal cabinets in his study, revealing tens of thousands of meticulously categorized note cards containing reading notes from scientific works on astronomy, geography, oceanography, physics, chemistry, and more. Thus, he's celebrated both as a literary figure among scientists and a scientist among literary figures. The book we're discussing today also has significant connections to China. The book features extensive storylines about China and was the first Verne novel translated and introduced to China. In 1900, translators Xu Xiaohui and Chen Pengshu collaborated to translate this book, titled 80 Days Around the World, and first published it in Shanghai. The book consists of 37 chapters, initially serialized in the French magazine Le Temps from November to December 1872, and published as a collection the following year. The novel fictionalizes an Englishman named Phileas Fogg who bets with friends that he can complete a journey around the world in 80 days. Ultimately, he overcomes numerous hardships and accomplishes the seemingly impossible feat. All right, now let's embark on this global journey together. First, let's meet the protagonist, Phileas Fogg, an eccentric, old-fashioned English gentleman who lives alone in London. He has no wife or children, and few relatives or friends. To illustrate his eccentricity, here's an example. He has fixed times for waking up, meals, going out, resting, etc., all precise to the minute. He lives like a machine. This eccentric habit makes it hard for many servants to adapt, so he frequently changes servants. Now, this time, he hired a new French servant named Jean. Jean is a shrewd and capable young man who has worked as a wandering singer, circus performer, gymnastics coach, firefighter, and more, with rich life experience, earning him the nickname Passepartout. In the 2004 film adaptation of Around the World in 80 Days, Chinese movie star Jackie Chan played the role of Passepartout. To Passepartout, being Fogg's personal servant, is a good job because his master spends most of the day at the club, drinking tea, reading newspapers, playing cards, and chatting with other English gentlemen. On October 2nd, 1872, Fogg came to the club card table as usual. The gentlemen discussed a theft that happened a few days ago, where £55,000 in banknotes vanished from the Bank of England. Little did Fogg know he'd later be implicated in this theft. Some at the table thought the police would catch the thief soon, while others believed that, with increasingly advanced transportation, the earth seemed to have shrunk, making it easy for the thief to escape anywhere and hard to catch.
Fogg completely agreed that the world had shrunk and even added that traveling around the globe in 80 days was enough.
This statement sparked intense debate once more. To prove himself right, Fogg decided to set off on his global journey that very night. He also made a bet with other gentlemen for £20,000, equivalent to half his fortune. However, Fogg wasn't acting on impulse. The late 19th century he lived in was the glorious era of the Industrial Revolution. Steam-powered ships and trains were very common, with fixed routes established between ports worldwide and railways spreading across continents. Fogg had seen a timetable in the newspaper showing that a world tour could be completed in as little as 80 days. As a Brit traveling globally, he had a unique advantage since British colonies were scattered everywhere. According to Fogg's plan, he'd travel by train and ship. First take a train to a port, transfer to a ship to India, then take a train across India and switch ships again in Calcutta. Then you pass through Hong Kong, China, Yokohama, Japan, and cross the Pacific Ocean, across the American continent and the Atlantic, finally returning to London on the 80th day. We know transportation and communication weren't as advanced back then. Any slight delay could ruin everything. Only someone who could strictly manage time could pull this off. Fogg's eccentric habit of doing everything down to the minute actually became his strength. At 8:45 that evening, Fogg left with Passepartout by train. Per the bet, he had to complete the journey by 8:45 p.m. on December 21st to win. What Fogg didn't know was that after he left London, the whole city was buzzing with talk about his world tour. Later, the Royal Geographical Society even published a paper on it. The article argued that since travel inevitably faces bad weather or delays like flight cancellations, an 80-day world tour was impossible. After that, fewer people supported Fogg, until only one old gentleman from the club still backed him. And this old gentleman had been paralyzed for years and never traveled far. Let's get back to Fogg. He smoothly boarded the Mongolia steamer bound for India and sailed into the Suez Canal. But here's a key point. In 1869, when this story takes place, 3 years earlier, the Suez Canal had just been completed, linking the Mediterranean Sea to the Indian Ocean. Since then, traveling from Europe to India no longer required detouring around Africa's southern tip, the Cape of Good Hope, saving nearly half the journey.
Reaching India took only about 20 days.
A week later, the Mongolia docked at Port Said on the Suez Canal for supplies, and passengers could disembark for a short rest. However, as soon as Fogg and Passepartout got off the ship, they were spotted by British Detective Fix. This guy was the biggest obstacle on Fogg's global journey. Turns out, shortly after Fogg left London, British police ordered detectives worldwide to help catch the thief who robbed the Bank of England. Based on the police's description of the thief's appearance, Fix concluded that Fogg was the thief, using the world tour as a cover to escape. But Fix couldn't arrest Fogg in Port Said, because according to British law, he could only legally arrest a suspect if he had a warrant in Britain or its colonies. Fix had already learned from Fogg's servant Passepartout that their next stop was Bombay, India, and in the 19th century, India was a British colony. So Fix immediately telegraphed British police to send the warrant to Bombay ASAP and followed Fogg onto the ship. Due to calm seas, the ship traveled faster than expected, arriving in Bombay 2 days early, which was great news for Fogg, who was racing against time. But for Detective Fix, it was terrible, because the warrant hadn't arrived yet, so he tried every way to delay Fogg. The master and servant's journey across India involved taking a train, but while waiting for it, Passepartout got into trouble. Gotta say, Passepartout can be a bit of a liability, often causing issues unintentionally that mess up the whole trip. Like this time, while wandering, he accidentally entered an Indian temple and was chased out by a group of monks. Turns out, Indian temples don't allow entry with shoes or socks.
The monks believed Passepartout's behavior was disrespectful to the gods. After much trouble, Passepartout escaped the monks, reunited with Fogg, and boarded the train. Fogg planned to cross India in 3 days, but the train stopped midway.
The reason? A stretch of railway was still under construction, so Fogg had to rent an elephant from locals at high price. This became the third mode of transport after trains and steamers. Though slow, they had a 2-day buffer from earlier gains. En route, they encountered a tribe preparing a suttee ceremony. The victim was Auda, wife of a deceased tribal Raja. Oda was a beautiful, Western-educated Indian woman forced to marry the elderly Raja. Per tradition, she'd be burned alive with his corpse the next day. Fogg broke his rigid schedule to rescue her from this fate.
But guards surrounded Auda all night, blocking rescue attempts.
At the ceremony, the normally calm Fogg charged the pyre to save her. Then something eerie happened. The Raja's corpse stood up, scattering the crowd. It was Passepartout. He disguised himself as the Raja during chaos. Amid confusion, they rescued Auda and took her with them, boarding the next train. In Calcutta, the scheming detective Fix arrived breathlessly with 3 Bombay temple monks. Fix bribed the monks to accuse Passepartout of sacrilege, getting him sentenced to 14 days. Fogg paid huge bail to free Passepartout, foiling Fix, who pinned hopes on their next stop. That next stop was Hong Kong, China, Fogg's final British colonial territory. After arriving in Hong Kong by ship, Fogg planned to board the Carnatic steamer for Yokohama, Japan, the next morning. After settling in the hotel, Fogg sent Passepartout to Victoria Harbor to check on the steamer. At the dock, Passepartout learned the Carnatic would depart early that very night. He was about to return to tell his master when Detective Fix intercepted him. Oh! Fix pulled Passepartout into a tavern, revealed he was a detective, and claimed Fogg was a fugitive thief. After traveling together, Passepartout didn't believe his master was bad. But Fix's words planted seeds of doubt in his mind. Fix seized the chance to get Passepartout drunk until he passed out. See, the liability teammate strikes again. What was Fogg doing then? Lost in love, he was busy romancing Auda, completely forgetting Passepartout. Next morning at the dock, they found the Carnatic had sailed. The next Japan-bound ship was in 8 days, and Passepartout was missing. Just as Fix thought his scheme succeeded, Fogg devised a new plan. Fogg learned the General Grant steamer would depart Shanghai for America via Yokohama in 4 days. So Fogg chartered a yacht to Shanghai, their 4th transport mode. With no choice, Fix pretended to be a fellow traveler and boarded too. Oh, en route to Shanghai, they hit a powerful typhoon and arrived late. But luckily, they spotted the General Grant just outside the harbor. See, protagonists always get divine help in crises. They signaled and boarded just in time. Even luckier, when docking in Yokohama, Fogg unexpectedly found Passepartout at a portside circus. Why was Passepartout in a Japanese circus? It was a twist of fate. Turns out Passepartout woke that same night after Fix got him drunk. Assuming his master knew about the early departure, he rushed to dock and boarded the Carnatic last minute, but found neither Fogg nor Auda aboard. Arriving in Yokohama penniless, he could only perform acrobatics at the circus to earn his passage back to England. After reuniting with his master's group, Passepartout boarded the General Grant with them to cross the Pacific to San Francisco, USA. Well, on the steamer, Passepartout beat Fix until he swore to help Fogg return to London, ASA, only then releasing him.
Arriving in San Francisco on election day, they witnessed rallies for different candidates escalate into a brawl.
Luckily unharmed, they boarded a train across North America to New York on the East Coast. Here's a fact. In 1869, 3 years before this story, the railroad linking San Francisco to New York was completed, called the Transcontinental Railroad. Crossing America from San Francisco took 6 months on foot before, but now, just 7 days by train. Per Fogg's plan, The express train to New York would let them catch the Liverpool-bound steamer, arriving in London exactly on day 80.
But crossing vast wilderness meant inevitable setbacks.
First, a buffalo herd crossing forced an emergency stop. After a 3-hour wait, a snow-damaged bridge forced a long detour. The most dangerous moment came with the Sioux attack.
Armed Sioux warriors boarded the train, robbing passengers. Some stormed the engine cab and knocked out the engineer.
The attackers tried stopping the train but accelerated it instead, nearly causing a derailment. Brave Passepartout climbed from a window into the cab and braked just in time, averting disaster. Crew and passengers repelled the Sioux, but Passepartout was captured. The train wouldn't wait. Fogg faced a choice: abandon Passepartout to stay on schedule for New York. If he went to save Passepartout, the next train to New York wouldn't leave until tomorrow night, guaranteeing he'd miss the British-bound steamer. What would Fogg choose? Given his pre-journey rigid adherence to schedules, he'd surely choose the former. But the journey had transformed this stiff gentleman. He abandoned his schedule again without hesitation to save Passepartout. If his first change was for love, this second was for the bonds of brotherhood. With local troops' help, fierce combat freed Passepartout, but cost them a day. Eager to arrest Fogg in Britain, Fix proposed time-saving sled travel to the nearest major city.
Chicago had frequent trains to New York. Finally, Fix actually helped Fogg.
America was frozen in December, fresh snow blanketing the ground. Fix spotted locals using sleds with tall masts and sails, harnessing wind like land ships. These sleds could rival trains in speed, so they boarded, their fifth transport mode. Though they reached New York via sled and train, the Liverpool steamer had left 45 minutes prior. Passepartout felt guilty for the delay, yet Fogg remained eerily calm. Recalling the yacht from Hong Kong to Shanghai, he scoured the harbor and found a Liverpool-bound cargo ship. See, heroes always forge paths through crises. He chartered the ship at great cost. The cargo ship became their sixth and final transport mode. With just 9 days left, the ship maxed its engines to save time. But they hit a violent storm mid-voyage.
Coal reserves depleted, fighting the tempest.
A fog ordered them to dismantle cabins and decks for fuel. The skeletal ship finally crossed the Atlantic to Liverpool. Only 9 hours left until the 80-day deadline. The train from Liverpool to London takes just 6 hours. Just as Fogg thought he'd succeeded, Detective Fix appeared with an arrest warrant. Though cleared 3 hours later when the real thief was caught, he reached London at 8:50 p.m., 5 minutes late, losing the bet. Devastated at home, Oda comforted him. Though he'd lost his fortune, he'd won her heart. She'd witnessed his bravery and kindness throughout their journey. Next day, they rushed to marry at church, but couldn't.
Turns out Fogg messed up the date.
He thought it was Monday, December 22nd. But actually, it was Sunday, December 21st. The pastor was off. Then Fogg realized 8:45 p.m. that night was the real deadline. Hear that? Some might wonder. Did Fogg miscalculate days during travel? Nope, because he traveled eastward toward sunrise. Every 15 degrees longitude gained an hour. Circling 360 degrees gained a full day. That's time zones. This secretly earned day made Fogg the winner. Of course, this journey gave Fogg more than money and love, growth. From rigid loner to true gentleman, he kept his integrity while learning cooperation, friendship, and love. Maybe that's the real meaning of travel. That concludes the story of Around the World in 80 Days. Scholars categorize Verne's sci-fi into two types: journeys through unknown worlds, like Journey to the Center of the Earth, 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, and From the Earth to the Moon. In these novels, Verne predicted the trajectory of future technological development. Submarines, moon landings, and spacecraft mentioned in his books became reality in the 20th century. The other category involves journeys through the known world. Here, Verne celebrated rapidly evolving technologies of his era, like Around the World in 80 Days. After this summary, you might notice how tightly this book aligns with then-current science. For example, the steam trains and ships matched real speeds and schedules of that time. In 1872, during serialization, Verne received letters from European and American shipping companies.
They wanted product placement for Fogg to sail on their steamers.
This blurred lines between sci-fi and documentary for many readers. But sci-fi is defined as imaginative literature grounded in scientific knowledge. This novel undoubtedly fits the genre. In the story, Fogg circumnavigates the globe. Yet, Verne crafted it in his study, spinning a globe while weaving scientific reality into boundless imagination. To modern readers, 80-day global travel seems easy with planes. But returning to the 19th century reveals a stark difference. Written in 1872, the story also unfolds in 1872.
Just 5 years earlier, this journey would have been impossible.
Why? Those 5 years revolutionized transport. The Suez Canal linked seas, while trans-Indian and trans-American railways slashed distances.
As distances shrank, transport speeds accelerated.
By late 19th century, steam engines powered trains and ships. First invented in late 16th century England, steam engines initially pumped water from mines. After Watt improved the steam engine in the 18th century, thermal to kinetic energy conversion efficiency soared, enabling steam-powered transportation. In the early 19th century, Englishman Stephenson and American Fulton invented steam trains and ships, ending the era of horse-drawn carriages and sailboats. Inspiring the gentleman's shrinking world remark, opening the novel. Fogg embodies Verne. Aware of technological advances, he confidently bet on completing the journey in 80 days, winning the £20,000 wager through thrilling yet logical turns. Hey, I hate that. Verne also explored a hot scientific topic in the novel: time zones. Magellan's crew encountered this during their circumnavigation.
But sailing westward, opposite to Fogg, they lost a day unknowingly.
In 1522, when reaching Cape Verde, the crew dated July 8th, Wednesday, while locals had July 9th, Thursday. Time zones plagued not just global voyages, but also 19th century long-distance trains. Before the 19th century, cities set noon when the sun peaked overhead. Different longitudes meant different local times. For example, cities 1 degree apart differed by 4 minutes. In 1853, 2 trains collided head-on in Eastern America, killing 14. Investigation revealed the trains operated on times from cities just 2 minutes apart. After Verne's 1872 novel, time zones became a heated public debate. To prevent repeats, 41 nations attended the 1883 International Meridian Conference in Washington, D.C., establishing Greenwich as prime meridian and creating 24 global time zones. So, cities within a zone shared one time, different zones converted uniformly, ending temporal chaos forever. The 19th century of Verne's era witnessed not only Europe's Industrial Revolution glory, but also rampant colonial expansion. India and Hong Kong, mentioned in the book, were British colonies at that time. Through protagonist Fogg, Verne expressed his views on colonialism. On one hand, Verne approved of colonialism's outward expansion. He believed regions beyond Europe were shackled by feudal decay, their people ignorant and needing reformation. Like the monks who chased Passepartout for sacrilege, but were bribed by Fix to violate religious rules as accomplices. On the other hand, Verne saw British colonialism causing collapse of indigenous cultures. In Bombay, Fogg ignored British-style buildings. He wouldn't even glance at them. The colonial era has long passed into history, yet the novel's thrilling plot ensures its timeless appeal, with numerous stage and film adaptations. After the novel's success, Verne collaborated with playwright Don Airy to adapt it for stage.
The play premiered triumphantly at Paris's Théâtre de la Châtelet on November 7, 1874.
Featuring live elephants and animals, it immersed audiences completely. Beloved by French audiences, it ran until 1940, just before World War II, earning Verne enough to buy his first ship, Saint Michel, for seafaring adventures.
In 1956, American director Michael Anderson first adapted it for cinema.
To capture the novel's global scenery, filming spanned 13 countries, with over 70,000 extras. Over 40 top Hollywood stars made cameo appearances. The film also modified the original plot. For example, Fogg's journey begins with a hot air balloon flight in the film. The balloon crosses the Alps southward, but accidentally lands in Spain. In Spain, Passepartout even experienced a bullfight before they boarded the ship to India.
This big-budget film ultimately won the Best Picture award at the 27th Academy Awards.
Written over a century ago, Around the World in 80 Days made global circumnavigation a widespread dream for countless people. In reality, countless individuals have emulated the protagonist Fogg.
In 1889, American explorer Nellie Bly pioneered Fogg's route, completing the journey in just 72 days and stunning the world.
Today, commercial airplanes circle the globe in 2 days, while space stations orbit even faster. China's Shenzhou spacecraft, for example, completes an orbit in 90 minutes. All did. Perhaps soon, human global travel will be measured in minutes. Technological progress always accelerates beyond imagination. All right, that concludes our interpretation of Around the World in 80 Days. Find reading notes below the audio. See you next time.